Ever get that feeling like someone's watching you? I mean, really watching you.
I think we all have.
It's like that shiver down your spine, you know? And that's what we're going to unpack today as we take a deep dive into the world of totalitarian regimes.
Fascinating stuff.
It's all through the lens of George Orwell's 1984, of course.
A classic, and for good reason.
You sent over some passages from it, and wow, in Spanish, that's dedication.
Well, you know me. Always got to go the extra mile.
We'll be looking at that and the principles of Newspeak a bit later, too. But the mission here, if you choose to accept it,
I'm listening.
is to really understand how these regimes work. Not just the obvious stuff, the jackboots and the secret police.
Right.
But the way they get inside your head, the psychological manipulation that makes it really scary.
Absolutely. What's so brilliant about 1984 is how it goes beyond just brute force. Orwell really gets into the psychological mechanisms of control.
Yeah.
The subtle ways they manipulate your thoughts, even your perceptions.
Okay, so set the scene for us. You're living in Oceania, this world Orwell created. What's it like?
Well, imagine a world completely drained of color. London's gone. It's Airstrip 1 now. Everything's kind of gray and crumbling. And everywhere you look, telescreens.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Can't even imagine.
These things are transmitting and receiving constantly. Every whisper, every facial expression, Big Brother is watching.
So creepy, you'd be looking over your shoulder 24/7.
Exactly. Even in your own home, you're never truly alone. It breeds paranoia, suspicion.
And that fear, it makes people turn on each other, right?
Precisely. The party thrives on that fear. They encourage children to report any dissent, even from their own parents.
Wow, talk about a messed up family dynamic.
It creates this culture of self-censorship, where everyone's constantly second-guessing themselves.
And on that cheerful note, let's talk about doublethink. I feel like it's one of those Orwellian terms that's like seeped into our everyday language.
It has, hasn't it?
But what does it actually mean?
So doublethink is the ability to hold two completely contradictory beliefs at the same time and believe both of them.
Wait, what?
It's like, 2, 2 to 4, right?
Yeah.
But then you're told, and you accept, that 2, 2 to 5.
Wow.
And you hold both of those truths simultaneously. It's mental gymnastics on a societal scale.
No wonder Winston, our main character, is struggling. It's like his brain is being tied in knots. Especially since he works at the Ministry of Truth, where he's literally rewriting history every single day.
Right, and that internal conflict
Yeah.
that he feels from knowing something's wrong, even though he's told otherwise, that's what makes him such a compelling character.
He represents that little spark of individual thought that the party is so desperate to stamp out.
Yes.
And his act of rebellion, starting that diary, it's a huge deal, right? Just to have a space where he can actually be honest with himself.
Oh, absolutely. It's like he's reclaiming his individuality, holding on to his own memories and perceptions in a world where those things are under constant attack.
But he doesn't stop at the diary. He meets Julia, and their connection really throws a wrench into the party's plans.
Their love affair is a direct challenge to the party's control. It represents this deep desire for human connection, something the party can't control or replicate.
So it becomes a mini rebellion in itself. It's almost like that saying, the personal is political, right?
Exactly.
Like their love life is this act of defiance against the whole system.
Right. And, for a little while, they actually find a bit of freedom, a little haven.
Yeah, that room above Mr. Charrington's shop.
It's like their sanctuary, a place seemingly out of reach of Big Brother.
Keyword.
Yeah.
Seemingly.
Right.
Because then, bam! That reveal about Mr. Charrington. Talk about a punch to the gut. Turns out he's thought police all along.
It's that classic Orwellian twist. Shatters any illusion of safety.
Totally. Like, no one is who they seem.
Exactly. And you're always looking over your shoulder because you never know who's watching, who's listening, who you can trust.
Speaking of not being able to trust anyone, things go downhill pretty fast for Winston after that.
Yeah, that they do.
Next thing you know, he's in the Ministry of Love. And let's just say, I don't think they're handing out fluffy robes and cucumber water.
The Ministry of Love is Orwell at his bleakest, I think. It's where he really lays bare the brutality of the regime, not just physical torture, but the psychological manipulation too.
And that's where O'Brien comes in.
Ah, O'Brien, Winston's torturer.
And he's not your run-of-the-mill sadist, is he? Like, he genuinely believes in what he's doing.
Precisely. O'Brien is a true believer. He buys into the party line, hook, line, and sinker.
It makes him even more terrifying, in a way, because it's not even about personal cruelty for him. It's about this higher purpose.
Exactly. He's convinced that what he's doing is for Winston's own good, for the good of everyone.
And that's where that chilling quote comes in, right? About the boot stamping on a human face. forever.
It sends chills down your spine every time you read it.
Totally.
That line sums up the party's goal perfectly. Total and utter control. Not just obedience on the surface, but a complete crushing of the individual will.
So, in a way, they almost want Winston to believe, to love Big Brother, not just fear him.
Precisely. They want to control his thoughts, his feelings, his very essence.
Which is why that scene where he betrays Julia is so heartbreaking.
It's a gut punch because you realize everyone has a breaking point.
No matter how strong you think you are.
The party knows how to exploit our weaknesses, how to turn us against the people we love most.
And even after that, even after he's betrayed Julia, it still doesn't end for Winston, does it?
Because the party's objective isn't just to punish dissent. It's to reintegrate the reformed individual back into society as a testament to their power. To show everyone, this is what happens when you resist. This is what happens when you step out of line.
So chilling. And then that final encounter between Winston and Julia, let's just say it's not exactly a romantic reunion.
It's devastating, really, because you see how the party has succeeded in crushing their spirits, their connection, their very humanity. They're like shells of their former selves.
And then, that very last scene, with Winston sitting in the cafe declaring his love for Big Brother. What's your take on that ending? I mean, is it real? Has he actually been brainwashed? Or is it just easier to give in, to pretend to believe, than to face the reality of what they've done to him?
It's the question that haunts you long after you finish the book. Did he truly break, or did he find a twisted sort of peace and surrender? Orwell leaves it deliberately ambiguous, and that's what makes the ending so powerful, so unsettling.
Yeah, it really sticks with you. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. Telescreens, doublethink, the Ministry of Love. But there's one more piece to this totalitarian puzzle, something you mentioned at the start, Newspeak.
Ah, yes. The party's attempt to engineer a world where dissent, even the very thought of dissent, is impossible.
And they do that through language.
Exactly. By controlling language, you can control thought itself. That's the whole idea behind Newspeak, to shrink the vocabulary, to eliminate words that express concepts like freedom, rebellion, even love.
So if you can't even think the word freedom, how can you ever aspire to it?
Precisely. It's chilling, isn't it? And what's even more unsettling is how relevant it feels today.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. You're thinking social media, algorithms, all that.
Think about it. How often do you see certain words or phrases being used to shut down debate, to silence dissenting voices?
All the time.
Or how algorithms curate our news feeds so we're only seeing information that reinforces our existing biases. It's a subtle form of linguistic manipulation, but it shapes how we see the world, how we think, even how we feel.
So it's like we're all living in some kind of linguistic experiment and we're not even aware of it.
In some ways, yes. And that's why Orwell's message is more important than ever. We have to be vigilant. We have to be critical thinkers. We can't just passively accept what we're told, what we see online. We have to question everything.
Question everything. It sounds like good advice, not just for navigating the digital age, but for life in general.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of 1984. We've covered a lot of ground, explored some pretty dark corners of the human psyche.
And hopefully given our listeners something to think about.
Exactly. So until next time, remember, Big Brother might be watching, but you're in control of your own mind. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep those thinking caps on.